MES means different things to different people. You talk to, I see people post on LinkedIn. Yeah, MES is it's downtime and it's production counts and it's starting
OEE and scheduling.
And that's it. That is not it. It's everything to do with operations. It's anyone who's in an operational role in the factory. It's people in the quality department. It's people in the maintenance department. It's people in the logistics department. It's management. It's supervisors. MES is everyone because those people all communicate on a day-to-day basis, and the MES system helps them communicate in a consistent way with the same source of truth.
Hello and welcome to the Messy Mondays podcast episode 1. This is your host Kunal Wagh, and I'm delighted to have with me my first guest, the Vice President and General Manager of MES at Infor and the founder of MESmatters.com, Matt Barber. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here and incredibly grateful that you've invited me to be the first speaker. So thank you very much.
The topic that I wanted to talk to you about today, you're the first name that popped up. I've been planning to do this for quite some time. Mike Sutton has been pushing me to get into video a lot. Big shout out to Mike, and finally get to doing this now. So let's see how it goes.
Brilliant. Yeah, big shout out to Mike indeed. I love watching Mike's videos. So that's great advice from him.
So Matt, I want to talk about building a career in MES. A lot of people are DMing me, asking me what resources are there, what can I do to advance my career in MES. And I think you, who has seen right from being a software developer and now leading the entire team at Infor, a lot of people can benefit from your experience. And I think we should be able to help a lot of people.
Certainly hope so. I work with a lot of people who are kind of early in their MES careers. So let's see how we get on.
So for the very few people who do not know you in the MES world, could you give us an introduction and how you started your journey in MES?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally I studied computer science at University of Sheffield. And then I did a placement year. And when I did my placement year, I just happened to be working at a company called Lighthouse, which was a local company to me. It was great. I really enjoyed it a lot. I managed to do a lot of travel with work, went to several different countries, saw lots of different manufacturing processes and sites, and kind of fell in love with kind of the complexities of the shop floor. So yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed doing the technical work, writing code to build interfaces and to do other technical tasks. So that was a lot of fun. And after I went back for my third year of university, got my degree, and then I came straight back to Lighthouse to continue working there. So that's really where it all started. And then I went through a variety of different roles. So I started off as a software engineer. Then I moved into kind of a technical project lead type role, managing projects for customers. And eventually I transitioned into product, which was really one of the big turning points for me, which I know you're planning on asking me about later. So that was really exciting. And to be honest with you, I did a lot of different roles within that as well. So for example, one of the ones that I really liked, never had an official job title for this, but just, in a small company, you wear many hats, was the pre-sales role. So spent a lot of time doing, giving demos, understanding customer requirements, visiting potential customers, presenting our software to them. And that really gave me a great opportunity to really understand what the value of MES was. What's it actually doing for customers, and why do people invest in it?
It's very interesting you mentioned that, because I come from a mechanical engineering background, and I kid you not, I learned more about manufacturing in the first 3 months working in MES than I had done in 4 years of mechanical engineering. And for me, at least, it wasn't something that I wanted to do, or I didn't even know what MES was back then. But as you said, I got experience talking to different customers. So I had started as a business analyst, and then like you, I also moved into pre-sales. And when you actually can see what value you're bringing to the customer firsthand, that gives you what you call is the kick. And that is what keeps you going.
Yeah, definitely. I think, really being out on the shop floor and talking to customers, talking to operators, not just talking to the people in the office who tell you how the process works, but actually talking to the people on the shop floor who live and breathe that process every day. They're the people who use paper or Excel or old systems, who get frustrated, or who don't get frustrated and who are very happy working the way that they currently work. Whatever way it is, it's a nice challenge to kind of help them in their day-to-day jobs.
Yeah, because for us it is a project, but for them it is to change the entire way they're working. And they have been doing that for, let's say, past 10 or 15 years, and they don't see a reason to change. That is what I have seen, at least.
Yeah, I see some companies where change is hard because people don't want to use new systems. I see some companies where change is a lot easier because they're frustrated with the existing systems. So it is quite a mix, there. One thing I do think is quite important, though, with all technology nowadays, if you look at shop floor technology in particular, you really have not very good user interfaces. Let's put it that way. But people are used to using an iPhone or an Android phone. Just their day-to-day experience with technology is very slick. You've got apps everywhere. You've got nice user interfaces. You've got people thinking all day, every day about how many clicks have you got to get to somewhere. You need to have that same mentality when you're designing MES software. It needs to be something that's really nice for the operators to use on a day-to-day basis, that helps them do their job and it doesn't make it harder for them. And if you can do that, then you're in a good place.
And that's a very good point. It shouldn't make it harder for them, right? And we have that old saying that manufacturing is probably 10, 15 years behind in terms of technology and the rest of the industries, right? And you might have seen all these products that are in the market since, let's say, the past 15, 20 years. The UI does not look good at all. And people are okay with that. People are okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I see terrible looking MES applications all over the place, and it makes me very sad. I would like for all MES applications to look nicer. I know we've spent a lot of effort making our application look nice, but not just look nice, feel nice. Be good to use on a day-to-day basis. Make it easier for people to get the information they need without navigating away to different places. And we have a further set of enormous changes coming on design. So I think, the more effort that you can put into that, the better you make the lives of the people on the shop floor. It needs to be easy for them to use.
Very interesting. So you mentioned about starting out as a software developer, and then you got all that exposure. Then you decided to come back to MES because, having that travel experience, talking to different customers at that such a young age, it makes you feel nice, if I have to be honest there. You moved into solution architect and then into product. What were your learnings in the product role?
Yeah, the product role was probably the most pivotal role in my career, I would say, because I was moving from a technical role, which was to kind of design and implement MES solutions for a handful of customers, to a role where you were really looking across all customers. And you really had to deeply understand how even similar requirements can manifest themselves in different ways in different manufacturing processes or for different customers. And that was really interesting. And that meant that one of the things I think about the product role is it's got two faces. It's got an internal face where you look into the business and into the product, and you're thinking there around what does this product need to do? How's it going to do it? Feeding in with a technical background, feeding in technically, how could it do it? How should it do it in the best way? And then borrowing the more clever brains from development teams to actually get it right. And then there's an outward facing role, which is the more commercial aspect. And the commercial aspect is really around how much should we sell it for? What should be on the roadmap going forward? Are we looking to put things in the product that are going to benefit existing customers, make their lives better? Or are we going to be looking at big strategic future changes that perhaps could win us more customers going forward? What's the mix of those things like? And kind of thinking about that, the kind of product strategy in general. So you are an internal facing role and an external facing role at the first time, kind of technical and commercial. And I think at any point in your career, if you can have an understanding of technical and an understanding of commercial, that's really where you get a great synergy because you can kind of have a foot in both camps.
Yeah, you mentioned about having the technical and the commercial sense, let's say. So if somebody had to start out today, are there any technical skills that you would encourage them to go for? Any programming languages, any integration methodologies? What is required for a young professional today?
Oh, it's so hard. It's like learning a foreign language at school, right? It's like, which language should I learn? You don't know until you get out into the big wide world. And it would have been really helpful if I'd learned French, but actually at school I learned German. So you don't really know until you start your career, which is really hard. So for programming languages, we have a very modern tech stack. So we use Entity Framework, which is laid on top of C#. And we use React in the front end, and we use a whole range of other modern technologies. But there are plenty of other applications out there which use completely different technologies. And until you know where you're going to work, you don't really know which one you need. I think in programming in general, it's like, for me, if you can think like a programmer, then you can learn the syntax. So it's really important that you can be a problem solver, that you can think about how the problem should be solved and kind of get the logic right. And if you can get the logic right, then it's a case of doing a bit of a Google or asking some questions to get the syntax right. And over time, you're then going to learn the language that you get thrown into. So it's important to have a logical mind, I think, but it's not necessarily important to learn a specific language.
You mentioned about understanding the problem you're trying to solve. How you do it is just a part of the syntax, but requires to have a business as well as technical understanding, as you mentioned earlier. So we talk to a lot of manufacturers and our IT team, as you mentioned earlier, right? So within manufacturing also, we have production, we have quality, we have maintenance, all these teams. You have to kind of be like a knowledge broker in between them. What soft skills do you think are important if you want to make it big in MES? What are the personality traits that you're looking for in a person when you're hiring for somebody in MES?
Yeah, there's a lot. You kind of have to be someone who can do many different things. I think there's a big piece around communication. That could be written communication, it could be verbal communication, it could be the ability to communicate through things like PowerPoint slides. But really, for me, communication is about giving the right level and right type of communication for your audience. So you need to keep switching it up. Yeah, if you're talking to a CEO or some kind of executive leader, you're talking in one way. If you're talking to someone on the shop floor, you're talking a different way. If you're talking to middle management, it's something different. If you're talking to someone in the maintenance team or the logistics team or the quality team, you need to really think about who your audience is. You need to think about how they see the world, how they see the challenges that they're facing. And you need to be able to adapt your communication and your communication style to give them the best information that they need. So I think being adaptive on communication is a big one. And I think that's true for most career paths in many different industries. If you can be very thoughtful about how you're communicating and who you're communicating to, then you're gonna excel, because when people listen, they're getting what they need from you. And a big part of communication, of course, is actually listening. So, don't tell them what you think they want to know. Actually listen and understand their perspective first, and then try and give them the right answer that helps them. Don't just say all of the things that you know. One thing I learned very early is you can go to even multiple factories in the same customer, and they'll use different terminology. They'll call one thing something and then something else. So definitely across industries and across customers, you're talking about the same things all the time, but everyone's using completely different words. And you have to kind of have like a library in your head of all of the different terminologies that you need to learn about. And when you go to a new customer or prospect and you talk to them, you have to very quickly start translating. Okay, they mean this, they mean that. And then try and communicate back using their words. Just because I call it something, it doesn't mean that the customer calls it something. So you need to very quickly adapt to their terminology so that what you're saying actually makes sense for them. That's actually quite a hard learning curve, to be honest, because you have to be doing all of the changes in your head to make it comes out clear for the audience.
Yeah, and I think it's very important that you said don't just tell them what you know and try to actually actively listen and understand what the problem is. I think go in with a helping mindset and not something that we are the IT team or we are somebody who is going to improve your shop floor and do wonders for you. But the manufacturing team usually they know that they have been producing, they can do it without you, and they will continue to do that. So you don't have to fight them on that. It is just that this is a system that is going to enable you in your day-to-day activities and make your operations better. And that can't happen if you don't have their buy-in. So I think that is very important.
Yeah, it's so important to get buy-in from across the business. A project, if you're doing like, I'm laughing because I'm about to say something that's always very controversial, but MES means different things to different people. You talk to, I mean, I see people post on LinkedIn. Yeah, MES is downtime and it's production counts and it's starting
OEE and scheduling.
And that's it. That is not it. It's everything to do with operations. It's anyone who's in an operational role in the factory. It's people in the quality department. It's people in the maintenance department. It's people in the logistics department. It's management. It's supervisors. MES is everyone, because those people all communicate on a day-to-day basis, and the MES system helps them communicate in a consistent way with the same source of truth. So that's really where the term MOM came from, manufacturing operations management, to say, okay, it's broader than an MES. The problem is that what you end up with is some people using the term MES, some people using the term MOM. It all getting a bit confusing. The marketing isn't really there in general, so no one knows what any of the terms actually mean. And then you end up with a little bit of a fight across the MES, MOM teams. And it all just gets a bit confusing. So for me, let's just say MES and MOM are synonymous. They're very, very similar. Let's just not confuse it any further. And it's for operations. It's operations in the factory.
And I think that even if you're saying MOM, you do not have to have this monolithic application that has to have everything. You can have, if let's say there's a quality system that works perfectly and fits perfectly into what you're producing, you can have that integrate with your MES. But I think that broadly falls into the MOM umbrella only. Yeah,
I do agree to an extent. I think you can run like that temporarily. That's my feeling. Because and this is one of the things that I end up explaining quite a lot. But if I'm an operator, think about the things that I've got to do from a quality perspective. I'm running the job so that my production order is being run on the line. I've got my materials being made, and I know that there's maybe I know or maybe I don't know, depending on what application I'm using, that there's a quality check to be done. Now, if I'm using an MES system where it's all in a single application, the application can tell me you have a quality check to be done. And when it tells me there's a quality check to be done, I can do a quality check. I get a load of free information. So firstly, I get it on my MES screen. I don't have to have a separate way of having that communicated to me. Don't have to have anything on paper. Don't have to have anything in an Excel. I don't have to look at a separate application. But then once you do get the notification that you need to do a quality check, I can take a sample from the line. I know what production order it was, so I get that context. I know what material was being made, so I get that context. And I know 100 other things about that particular order and when it was taken, so I can have all of that tied back to that core data. Or maybe I don't do the quality check. Maybe I just need to take a sample from the line. And if I need to take a sample from the line, then the MES can print a label. It can stick that on the sample or the balls, and then the quality engineer can come over, pick it up, or it can be moved there by the logistics team, whoever. And then that check can appear on an MES screen in a lab for to see what all of the different information is for all the different checks that need to be done. Or it could be sent out to another application like a LIMS if a LIMS is required, for example, which they are in some scenarios. And then I can bring it back. And that means that I get all of the context around the quality check that was done at the time. And I get visibility of that in the MES. So I know which checks were done. Did I conform to the schedule? I can look at my SPC analysis directly in the MES because I got the quality check results. I can do clever things like do visual inspections on defects, and I can do checks on other things. So I could do a check on a serialized piece of inventory that's created, yes, or I can do a check on a pallet of inventory, or I can do a check at a defect at a distance on a reel that's being made in the MES. Yeah, the defect was at 1,000 meters for 200 meters.
Yeah.
Or I can do a quality check on an asset, on a machine or on a tool. So having it all in one system means you've got a really connected, joined up user experience, as opposed to having fragmented systems where every time you do an interface, you take some of the context with you.
Yeah, you're just sending results or you're just fetching results and then you have it stored in a database and then you can see a report. That is usually how it happens.
Exactly.
But Matt, is it not extremely difficult to, get all these use cases together and build a product that caters to all the industries and all their use cases? How do you think that can be managed?
Yeah, it is very difficult. And yeah, that's what we've been doing for a very long time now. And I'm very proud of how far we've come with that. There's always some coding that needs to happen, right? I mean, think of the level of integration that you need. We can integrate with OPC on the shop floor to collect data from sensors and gauges, etc. You can collect all of that data automatically, and there are many things where we just map it. So just the mappings come in, we map it to the master data, and the data streams in, production counts and downtime and other things. You don't need to do any coding. But if, for example, you wanted to say, well, I've received a signal from the machine, it tells me that this job started, and when the job started, I know that it needs to look at that tag to see what tool needs to be loaded in it. Well, that's coding, because to stitch all that together would be very, very difficult. And there are so many nuances that what you need to do is make it so that it's as easy as possible to do that, and the coding is as limited as possible. But we should be aiming for out-of-the-box applications where we can. And I think, the majority of our applications now are very configurable. We have very high levels of configurability in our application. And the way that we do that is we've been building up use cases into our product across a variety of different industries for many years now. So when we see a new thing come in, we say, we would need to code something to make that work. We take it to the development team. We say, hey, this thing's come up 2 or 3 times now. This is what we know about it. These are the different ways that it could work. We want to build this into the product as a configuration option. And we've been building those configuration options in for years. So that means that when you go to go to configure your application with Infor MES, you can define what we call a process type. And a process type has loads of different settings on it. I won't go through them all now, but loads of different settings on it about how that process actually operates.
Yeah.
Does it do rework, for example? Does it load materials onto a container? Does it allow co-production? Does it allow bio-production? What KPIs are we interested in? All of those types of things. And that is then defined once. And then you can create multiple production lines underneath that all reference the same process type.
Okay.
And the line has settings on it, and then the lines have machines in them. The machines reference the line, reference the process type, and the machine settings on it. And there's settings in all kinds of other places as well on the material. And that means that you can start to configure how the application works in certain scenarios, with the goal of having as little customization as possible.
So how the line works depends on what type of process you select. And then you can make that configurable in that way.
Yeah.
So it's very important to, have those use cases, all of those use cases in your application. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So is it a line that's is it a heat treatment? Because the way a heat treatment oven works is very different to the way that a mixing line works, or that a line works, or that the laser cutting line works. With an oven, for example, you have many different pieces of inventory across the factory, all created on different production orders that all go through the oven at the same time. They all need to go through the same oven cycle, but the production order that's being executed on the oven, there's a heat treatment cycle. It says get the oven up to temperature, then hold it at that temperature for a certain amount of time, then cool it down again. In there might be 30 different pieces of inventory that were all created on different orders. They all needed the same heat treatment cycle, but they weren't created on the same production order. So it's those kind of nuances. You need to make sure you've got the capabilities in the software to be able to handle that variation of process.
Yeah. So Matt, do you think young professionals should get an exposure to a certain platform and then build on from there? How do you recommend people go about it? Because you started out at Lighthouse and you had, I would say, the privilege of working and building the application from the grounds up. How do you think young professionals should approach this?
Yeah. I think for me, it doesn't really matter which company you go and work for and which application you use. What matters is that you get the experience of understanding the requirements. So the software does what the software does, but the important bit is going and understanding the manufacturing processes, going and understanding the challenges, the value that the application can bring, how to model some things. You can get that with any software. Every software has pros and cons, right? There are we're really good at some stuff. Other applications are good at some stuff. We've got to strike a balance of, well, there's not a particular application out there that I would say don't go and learn that one, because if that's the opportunity that you have, learn it to the best you can, but focus on the value that the MES brings and focus on the requirements, because that's the transferable skill that you could take somewhere else in future if you needed to.
Definitely. And Matt, what do you think about saying no when you're actually collecting those requirements? So, you cannot say yes to everything. Okay, we'll do this, we'll do that. You need to understand what is feasible in MES. And for that, you have to understand what MES is. So I think that experience can be gained from any platform, as you said. It doesn't matter, because all these platforms, they have some difference here and there. As you said, pros and cons, different ways of working. But the objective that they're trying to achieve is kind of the same. So once you have that, then you can interact with these manufacturing people in a much better way, and sometimes tell them that, this is something that cannot be possible. I think that is also very important for a person to understand.
I think the word no is very important.
Mm-hmm.
I'd frame it slightly differently. I think it's important to be honest. That's my perspective. So even in a sales cycle, we're very open up front and we say, the software can't do that. People are, can it do it? No, it can't do that. No, it can't do that, and we would like it to do it in future. Or no, it can't do it, and it will never do that. It's not the right application, or that's not the way that we're going with it. And people understand. As long as you explain why, then I think it's okay. What you don't want to do is say yes when you don't mean yes, because you get into a very difficult situation. And that could be in a sales cycle. I think it shows a real lack of integrity if you do that. Or it could be in a project where you say yes, but actually what you end up with is doing what the customer has asked for, but that actually causes more pain further down the line. So we've always had, for a very long time now, we've had this do it out of the box, configure it approach. Does that mean that we never do a customization? Of course it doesn't, because the product might have a gap, or the customer might want something that we would never want to give to anyone else.
Okay.
So you have to say, okay, well, there's going to be some cases where we do customize. The goal should be to explain to the customer what the consequence of doing a customization is. It doesn't. It's at the end of the day, it's software. You can make it do whatever you want it to do. There is no boundary really. The question is, should we let it do that? And it's a really important question to answer. You have to get the customer to a point where they understand why would I want to do it, and why would I not want to do it? And if the negatives outweigh the positives, then it makes sense to not do it. And there are some very good ones. So, for example, the more customizations that you have, the more it's going to cost. That's an obvious one.
Definitely, yeah.
But also, the more it's going to cost to maintain going forward. When you do an upgrade, when you want latest versions of software, when you want to take advantage of new features, if you've done a customization, then those things become more difficult. Customers with very low levels of customization or no customization, because we have some of those customers as well, very easy for them to take a new upgrade. Customers with enormous amounts of customization, which, to be fair, are usually legacy customers, customers older versions of the software when the software wasn't as capable as it is now. Those take a lot more effort, and I think increasingly manufacturers are wanting a more configurable out of the box experience. They don't want to be stung by large upgrade efforts.
Yeah.
They want it to be easier going forward. So yeah, the consequences of choosing not to customize something is that you have to do some training, you have to change the process, you have to change the way you work. Some customers are more open to that than others. Personally, I think it's good to explore as much as possible down the route of how could we change this process to make it better. You just have to always bear in mind what the impact on the end user is, because you want them to use the software. You don't want them to not use the software.
Yeah. They should be happy about having the software, and it should not be just another task for them. I've seen cases where operators would not input a value inside MES because they don't understand the importance of it, or that value is never seen by anyone. Yeah. You talked about understanding the requirements and seeing the feasibility of how it is possible to customize the product or not. But I would also like to ask you about requirements from different teams that can conflict with each other. Why am I asking you is because I had one requirement once when they wanted the FTT collection point, or the right first time collection point, shifted from one station to the other so that they can have the rework and then come to that point, and that then count is not added in the rework count, and that is something that business would not want, but for the quality team it looks good on their KPI sheet. So how do you tackle these situations?
I think in that specific example, the people in the quality team were asking you to fudge the numbers.
Yes.
That's what they were asking you to do. I think that you have to take that decision a level up in their organization. You can't make that decision as the person implementing it. You can't say, okay, we'll help you fudge your numbers. You know that the right thing to do is to give the correct KPIs, and this is one of the things with KPIs. It's not about using the KPIs as a stick to whack the operator or to whack the person in the quality team. It's about understanding where you are right now and using that data to improve. That's what it's about. So the management need to make it very clear to people who are going to be using this system, this is a tool that is going to help us all improve. And we're going to work together with you on that. We're not going to beat you up about it. We're going to work together. So I think in your specific case, I think I would have said, no, that's not how the KPI should work. The whole point of the KPI is that we are trying to detect how many things needed to be reworked. And we want to make it better so that fewer things need to be reworked going forward. But there might be some other ones where it's a bit more difficult. So yeah,
it's interesting that you say that, because I read this somewhere. The moment you track a KPI, its value is lost.
Really?
The moment people know that this KPI is being tracked, then you've lost its value, because then all the people are just trying to achieve that particular number. And if the KPI is being tracked without their knowledge, then that is something that is useful for the organization as a whole. What do you think?
I think it probably depends on the KPI. I think the time where the KPI loses its value is when you do something like you put an incentive against it. You pay someone based on it. They will do whatever it takes to get that number right, whether that's finding a way of circumventing the system, or whether it doesn't matter what it is. They'll find a way of making that number look better. I think if you can have a conversation with your teams and you say, look, we're putting this application in, with a view to achieve these goals. Firstly, we want to have an accurate understanding of where we are right now. Secondly, we want to improve where we are right now. And this is not a tool that we're going to beat you up with. This is a tool that we're going to use to help make your life better. If you've got, I'd dread to talk about OEE given the recent conversations on LinkedIn. But if we're talking about OEE, for example, um, OEE is made up of three components. The most damaging component typically is downtime. Well, operators don't like downtime. Downtime's a nightmare because you have to keep stopping and starting the machine all the time. You have to keep going and maybe you tweak something, fix it, get the maintenance team in. So if you look at your OEE figure and you determine that a significant problem is downtime, and you can use that information as a way to make it so that the machines stop less, that's in everyone's benefit. It makes the operator's life easier and it makes the factory run more smoothly, more effectively, and have a better, higher quality output. So you have to use it in the right way, I think, and make sure everyone's on board.
Yeah, but then that it is also a question of who caused the downtime. Was it production? Was it maintenance? Was it IT? And if it was IT, then everyone's happy on the shop floor, right? Because they then they just have to wait, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think maybe some people would like that, but maybe that's a little bit cynical. I'd like to think that most people turn up to their job every day and they want to do a good job. Like whatever job you do, people have got to take a little bit of pride in what they do. I had a customer that I worked with for quite a long time, and they had some very complex processes. This was about 5 or 6 years ago now. They had some, maybe even a bit longer. They had some very complex processes, and the processes that they had at the time, our software didn't cope with. We had to build them something custom for them to be able to do their job. And I designed the interaction that they would have with the system to do that process.
Yep.
And I designed it with the business analysts and the other key people at that company. But we made the mistake of not including any of the operators. We implemented it, we went live, and about 3 months later, one of the people who ran that production line sent me an email. It was a very long email, a very constructive email. But that email basically listed out about 15 changes that they wanted to make to the application to make it so that they could use that bit of the application more effectively. Great email. And he really explained, like, in this scenario, we do these things, and therefore we need it to work this way. And in these scenarios, we do these things, we need it to work this way. And it was so much more nuanced and complex than anything we'd ever understood when we were gathering requirements before.
Yeah.
And I loved that because that person took enormous pride in the job that they were doing. They wanted it to be better for them, and they wanted it to be better for other people in the business. And he didn't have to, but he took the time to write a really constructive and helpful email. And from that point forward, we redesigned that process. I went to site, I met with him, we involved him in every stage of the design. And that was a real lesson for me. I think you really do need to talk to the people who are living and breathing it, not just the people who tell you how it works,
Yeah, completely. And the implementation would have been much better if you would have involved those operators right off the bat, and you would have probably saved that time of whatever 5-6 months of implementing that, and then that person coming to you and telling, this is how it should work.
Yeah, I mean, the luckily we didn't lose a lot of time because the change that we made was a couple of weeks to make that change. It could have been a significant amount of time, and involving those people early is really helpful. I mean, you can't ask everyone, so you have to draw the line somewhere. And you have to try and lean on the customer to give you the right people to feed into that process. But you can challenge them. You can challenge them on who the right people are, and if you don't think that they've got a wide enough variety, at least for some of the quality gates, for some of the points where you review the requirements, where you review the design, you really want to bring in people, but you want to bring in constructive people. Because there are some people who just don't want any change, and whatever you do isn't right for them.
Yeah.
But there are other people who genuinely want to make a change and want it to be better and will help give you that information. So you need to find the right people. But that's what you want to do.
To your point, actually, this is something that I advocate for from the manufacturer's side. I think it is better to have a specific team or a dedicated team for this implementation. You call it IT/OT team, or MES team or whatever you call it, but it should have these different stakeholders from different departments, quality, production, maintenance, IT even. And you have to have the best people on your team, and then they should have ownership for that particular implementation. What do you think?
100%. And actually, I'd take that a step further, which is to say you need teams at a central level across all of your factories as like a center of excellence.
Yeah.
And then you need teams at a plant level who work with the center of excellence team as an extension of that team at the plant level. And they can all work together, and you want to try and standardize as much as you can across your operations, across all of your factories. And it's really only by getting that level of buy-in from everyone that you're going to succeed. And then that center of excellence team also needs not just people to represent the different departments and people to represent IT. It needs a really strong project manager. It needs, and it needs really strong buy-in from leadership. People need to know that this is an important project that is going to transform the way we work in a positive way. That team of people that you need to assemble is quite broad, and you need a lot of skills and knowledge inside that team. And those people can be quite hard to find inside the organization. And they're already normally busy on other things because they're important people,
Definitely. And ability to learn also, because each factory thinks that they are doing it the best, usually. And a lot of people or a lot of manufacturers are actually trying to have this standardization, as you mentioned, because only then can you have an apples to apples comparison between the two factories. Otherwise, the data is all different, and then you don't know where you are. So I think that's a very important point.
Yeah.
So, Matt, if you wanted to talk about some of the resources that are available to young professionals today, if they wanted to have a structured approach to learning MES, because to be honest, that is something that I have struggled with a lot. And I kind of want to be able to bridge that gap. What do you think are the resources available for these people?
I think there are very limited resources available. It's something I've thought about a lot over the last few years. It's actually why I started MES Matters. I wanted to, I was getting asked the same questions again and again. And I thought, I know the answers to these questions, so I could just write it down. I would love to create some sort of more formal training. Would love if someone else created some more formal training. But I think it's really important that training is not good when it's like it's a 50-page Word document that's really difficult to digest or whatever. It needs to be something that is more kind of light-hearted and engaging, which is difficult, especially in manufacturing. I think there's a lot of really great stuff that happens in manufacturing, but it can be a bit dry sometimes. So I'd like to see something a bit more fun and engaging, and I've not come across anything like that so far.
Because people are kind of switching from books to videos now, even reels, and our attention span has reduced quite a lot. And I think even us in the manufacturing or MES world should adapt to that, and not have those long documents wherein you talk about each functionality, how it works. It is great. It absolutely is required. But then for the person to get into it, I think has to be something more engaging.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think that one of the things that's great, I mean, I like posting on LinkedIn and I like writing the blog, but it takes a lot of time. I've got a load of other things I'm doing at the same time, so it's hard to prioritize that. Although it's something I really am passionate about, I would like to spend more time doing that. I think that is very positive from a perspective of just getting your thoughts out there.
Yeah.
What it lacks is structure. So, I've posted a lot of thoughts on LinkedIn. I've posted a lot of blog posts, but they're not in any real sequence. They're not structured in any way. They don't take someone through a thought process. They don't get someone from A to B. So I think that's really what my content is missing. It's missing some kind of organized structure that gets people along that journey. What does it mean in this type of process or that type of process, or what does the integration journey look like, or what does the application landscape look like, or what do these types of processes look like? There's some gaps there that I wish we could address.
I think there are a couple of organizations. I think the people at United Manufacturing Hub they have a sort of a blog post which is structured. They start from what is IT, what is OT, and then, building on from then on. Then you have the folks at 4.0 Solutions who are also doing some good work in terms of understanding what is, let's say, MES or UNS and, all those latest technologies. But as you said, if I want to learn what is MES and I do not know what MES is, I don't have a pathway to go, this is step one, this is step two, this is step three. And, now you're here. And now then you do all those things. So there's definitely a gap there. And I'm hoping that somebody will definitely address that.
Yeah, I mean, if I had $1 for every time someone messaged me on LinkedIn asking if there's any training available, then I would be very rich, because it's one of the number one questions that people drop me a message for, and I wish I had a better answer to give them. I think the other thing to say is, as we had the conversation earlier about MES versus MOM, what does this mean? Everyone thinks about these things in a different way. There's not one right answer. There's lots of different ways of thinking about it. I know, some of the resources that you just referenced, they might think of MES in one particular way. We might think of MES in a different type of way. Someone else might think of it in a different type of way. So one thing I would say to anyone trying to learn these things is, don't just take your information from one source.
Yeah.
Because especially on LinkedIn, I mean, LinkedIn is, the more opinionated you are, the better traction you get. So,
definitely.
Yeah, that's something I think everyone has to be very cautious of. I see a lot of posts from people that are quite inflammatory, and I don't know if they're always. Yeah, there's a big following there, and there's a lot of traction that the post gets, but is it really a balanced view? And is it really the information that's going to help someone deeply learn and understand manufacturing and MES and the value that it can bring, or is it, what's going to get the most clicks and the most likes? That's just be cautious is my advice.
Yeah, to be honest, it is a social media platform in its sense. So, if it is not that today, it will slowly become that. That is what my gut feeling is. And because we are on the LinkedIn topic now, I also want you to explore, if I am somebody who is starting out in MES, how important do you think is building a presence on LinkedIn and then leveraging that, building connections, as you said, getting your information from different sources? How important do you think is that in advancing your career?
I think it's incredibly important. I think it's good to have relationships with other people in a similar space. How many people went to school with someone who's also interested in MES?
Zero. Yeah.
It's not like you don't have that in your social group at home. So you might have it within your social group at work. If that's the space you work in. I'm very lucky to have a lot of friends that I work with that talk about MES a lot with. But in general, people don't have that. I think LinkedIn is a great place to get to know new people, to interact. And also for me personally, I've been doing MES 15 odd years now. Still learn on LinkedIn. I post things, people comment, people add additional details, people correct me on points. I learn from them. Other people post and I learn from their content. I think about things in different ways. I'm open to. I don't think that I've got all the answers. I'm not the MES guru. I know a lot about MES from the experiences that I've had.
You are very close.
But I think LinkedIn is a really great platform. If you're open-minded enough to accept that you don't have all the answers, then it's a great place to understand other people's thoughts on topics and to learn from them. That's the way I use it.
Yeah, it's very important to put yourself out there. And let's say 10 years back or even 5 years back, we didn't have a platform where, I could talk about MES with anyone in the world. Yeah. We were usually limited by our organization and even our geographies. And, having that small circle and only talking about, let's say, MES or whatever that is, whatever the niche is, only in that small circle. I think we started talking I think it was some LinkedIn post, maybe your post or my post, and that is how we started talking. And here we are now. So it's important to understand that you do not have all the answers, as you pointed out, and having that attitude of learning every day, growing, and understanding that there's still a long way to go.
Definitely. I mean, if I think about how I learned MES, I learned MES by experiencing lots of different flavors of MES.
Okay.
And that takes a lot of time because you have to be on a project, you have to go and visit a customer, you have to understand the requirements, you have to be involved in the sales cycle. Those things aren't quick.
Yeah.
What's a lot quicker than that is reading what other people think online. That's a lot quicker. So
Yeah.
you can kind of, it's not a direct replacement for the real world experience, but it allows you to condense all of these other experiences that people have had and digest them and get there quicker. I think that's what it does, and build a network, which is obviously incredibly important as well.
We completely agree with you on that. Now, kind of moving on to a different direction, you have been awarded the Lifetime of Achievement Award from Manufacturing Digital for MES. Do you want to talk about that?
Not really. Just a bit embarrassing, really. I mean, it was an article that was written about me. I didn't actually receive an award, but I think it was an article that was written. It was an interview style article. It was very nice to have been recognised for sure. So I'm very pleased and proud to have been recognised for that. But there's plenty of other people that I work with who have got just the same level of experience that I have, and different experience in other cases. So yeah, it's always nice to be recognised, but it's also a little bit embarrassing. And we'll probably just leave it there.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about what is MES. We've talked about how can you do well in MES. We've talked about all the pitfalls that you need to look out for, and how can you put your best foot forward. What do you think is the future of MES? We have AI, we have machine learning, we have industry 4.0, 5.0, 63.0 even. But how do I, as a young professional, pick the right path in terms of what technologies I learn, and then, ensure that I am building a good career in MES?
Yeah. So I think it's really important to, well, firstly, it's important to recognise that a lot of the terminology you've just used is marketing.
Mm-hmm.
There will be new marketing, and there's always marketing. There's hype that happens, and people get very excited about things and they start using new terminology.
Mm-hmm.
But then it gets to a point where that terminology is progressed enough or advanced enough to be something that's actually adding some real value.
Yeah.
So look ahead for sure at some of those areas of hype, but also don't forget that there's a real world right now with tangible things that you can do to improve operations. There's the what can happen right here and now, and there's the what can happen in future. You need to have an eye on both of them if you're looking to advance your career, because you need to be good at the now, because you're going to grow on top of that. But you also need to be having a look ahead to the future. So I think the most obvious one for that is the AI advances that are happening at the moment. MES is ripe for AI because MES collects an enormous amount of data, real-time operational data, direct from the shop floor or from other departments in the factory, highly contextualized. There's really, really exciting data that can be used for AI purposes. And then when you think about AI, there's a few different buckets. So there's the Gen AI piece, which is really just review my data and present it in a different way that's more easy for me to digest.
Yeah.
You can do that quite easily. Our product, I would say easily, the dev team will probably kill me. But what you don't need, you can do it on the data. You don't need to do some of the additional legwork that you have with things like AI and machine learning, really around trying to solve a specific problem.
Yeah.
Machine learning, for example, you need to identify the problem. You need to hypothesize about what the problem can be. You need to assess whether you've got enough data to solve the problem, how to get that data if you don't have it, to actually collect the data, to train the model. There's a whole bunch of work that goes on there. Infor have got teams of people that do that as their sole job. They'll go into a customer and they will do an assessment and say, what are you trying to achieve, and how can we make sure that we collect the data and implement the right machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms to get you a resolution that adds some value to your organization. Most manufacturing companies don't have those skills in-house. So the more people in future that have those types of skills, the better. They're going to be very highly sought after for sure. But it's one thing to have those skills on their own, and it's another thing to have those skills with the understanding of manufacturing, and have those skills kind of contextualized and understanding the requirements. So if you could be someone who bridged that gap, that would be a very good way forward, I think.
Mm-hmm. And as you said, you need to have that data to build anything on top of that. I mean, you can build a document management system just by uploading all of your, let's say, PDFs or whatever data you already have. And then, as you said, present it in a different way. But to actually, let's say, do something like an AI machine inspection and actually get it right to a point where you can trust the application is something that, takes time. And first you get the fundamentals in place, capture your data, and then move on to, let's say, AI or machine learning. Yeah.
Yeah. This is an area that is, you still get a lot of people who think it's hype.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a lot of people who are saying, no, it's actually adding some real value. I think my personal take is that when this all started happening a few years ago,
yeah,
I thought it was hype.
Okay.
I thought it would be difficult to implement.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is difficult to implement in some cases, but I have actually been amazed that Infor have an application called Infor OS. I won't go into the details, but it's basically the technology platform that all of the other Infor applications connect onto. So whether you're the MES system, or you're an ERP system, or you're the PLM, or you're the CPQ or WMS, everything goes through this Infor OS layer.
Is it like a service bus?
I wouldn't describe it as a service bus, but
Okay.
but it's like it's a layer, a technology platform layer where it's got the data fabric and the data lake. All of the data is stored there from all the different applications.
Mm-hmm.
All of the artificial intelligence and machine learning and generative AI can be layered on top of that data to produce meaningful, value-driven outputs.
Mm-hmm.
So, I thought it was a little bit of hype a few years ago when all this started, but actually, InfoOS is a platform that's been developed for a very long time. And the more capabilities that are being layered on, I am increasingly blown away by its capabilities. So we can pump up the MES data, for example, and combine that with data from other applications. And then it can do all of its algorithms and its machine learning and whatever else, and it can feed back to us what's going on. And there are like there's a couple of things there. One is the ability to go to a specific customer and try to solve a specific problem.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that the Infor team do is try and create repeatable use cases.
Yeah.
So won't go into all the details of how they do it, but they create these repeatable use cases that can be used across industry.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that it's something that you can get up to speed a lot more quickly with getting value from the application.
Yeah.
So you can just kind of, I'm going to say, just turn it on. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but you just turn it on for your customer, and it's something that's been used at other customers before. And if the data is there, which it should be because it's all part of the same landscape, then if the data is there, you can turn it on and you can start to get value from that. And there might be other things that you then want the InfoOS team to come in and look at specifically for your organization, but there might be some points on the chart that are a bit easier to get value from.
Sure. So it's like an event streaming platform with storage, and then you can build on that, have algorithms running on top of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'm not doing it justice because it's also the default user interface for many of the applications.
Mm-hmm.
It's also kind of the reporting layer.
Okay.
The data lake, the data fabric. You could do RPA, you could do artificial intelligence, you could do machine learning. Like it's all kind of layered into the same place.
Yeah.
So it's broader than I'm kind of giving it credit for, but for the purpose of this conversation with the advanced technologies piece, it's the application that allows you to do those artificial intelligence and machine learning operations.
But this InfoOS is only to integrate your applications, or can you also have your shop floor layer somehow integrated into the same thing. Then you have a true hub that everything talks to that Infor OS. Can that be done as well?
So MES pumps up the relevant data. So what you don't want is all of the data from all of the applications in one place. You can put it in the data lake, fine, so all the data is stored there. But you want to make sure you're sending the right information at the right level of aggregation. And only the relevant information. If you just put all of the possible data in one place, then you end up with a not very performant system.
So an ERP has nothing to do with what a machine is, the current state of a machine is right now, right? That has to go through the MES, let's say.
Yeah. So if we were taking production counts, for example, the MES might be reading production counts, depending on the cycle time of the process, might be reading production counts every 30 seconds or every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes. And that would then be aggregated up to, let's say, a shift level or a job level or an hourly level or whatever aggregation level you've chosen. At that level, that you would then pump that data up to the ERP.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
That might not be the level that you pump it up to the data lake. You might want a different aggregation level for that. But you choose what the right level of aggregation is for each of the bits of data that you want to export.
So ISA 95 is still relevant.
Yeah, 100%. Nothing ISA 95 is still relevant. It's when you hear people talk about this isn't relevant, that's not relevant. It's all marketing. Everyone's just trying to get an edge in the market. That's all.
Because if you disagree with something, it creates a market for the people who agree with you and don't agree with you, because there's no such thing as bad marketing.
Look at Jaguar.
They're launching something tomorrow. Let's see. Let's see. I'm hoping that the car is good.
I won't comment on whether I liked it or I didn't like it. No. And everyone's saying that they don't like it, but Jaguar has never been more relevant because it's everywhere.
Exactly. Now everybody's talking about Jaguar all of a sudden. So maybe that worked. Let's see. We can only see what they have in mind. Tomorrow they're launching something. Let's see. So Matt Barber, thank you very much for being the first guest on the Messy Mondays podcast. I want you to tell us your experience, good, bad, everything. I want you to be as open as possible. And
I thought it was really interesting. I love talking about MES, so that was an easy one for me. I followed you on LinkedIn for a long time now. I really enjoy your posts. I love your engagement on LinkedIn. So I've enjoyed talking to you. I know we've talked a couple of times offline anyway, but it's been great to talk to you on camera. And I really want people to have a career in MES. I want young people to be excited about working in manufacturing, about working in MES or with other applications in the manufacturing landscape. I think it's a really great career. People always need stuff made. So, it's a really, really great career. It's a really interesting space, far more interesting than you're led to believe. When I tell people I work in manufacturing, but people don't understand unless you explain to them the kind of the challenges and the interesting complexities of manufacturing, and those are the things that I love. I love going on the site. I love seeing manufacturing processes, and I really love seeing young people come up through the company and through other manufacturing companies we work with, really learning and understanding these things and getting value from it. That's what I did, and I would love for more people to do it. So kudos to you for helping with the LinkedIn communities and MES, and I really hope that you have some future success with this podcast, because I think there's a lot of people out there who want to learn more.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for your time, and see you again very soon on the Messy Mondays podcast.
You're very welcome. Thanks very much. See you later.